Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. You ever heard that old song? Kids used to sing it. We used to sing it to our siblings. You know, the boys and the girls arguing about, are boys better than girls or girls better than boys? It's an argument in leadership that seems like it never stops. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Master the Story Power method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit storypowercoach.com.
Look, I've been through a lot in my life, she said. The ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, the good and the bad, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be saying to people. Story Power Academy, we're here to help you select, qualify, and craft the best stories for the deepest impact. You should join us at storypoweracademy.com. Look for that little button that says 6 weeks done with you, and it's going to change your life.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. Many times in leadership, there's an assumption that it's not as hard as people make it out to be. My very first military assignment, after I finished my basic training and my very first, test of leadership, I was made dorm chief on day 9 in basic training, and I was among a bunch of other guys that were still struggling with the new adjustment to get away from home and grow up. And there was a whole lot of growing up that needed to happen. When I got to my first base in training in the fire academy, because I'd been dorm chief, kind of walked into the idea that I had a blue silver rope on my shoulder. It was the leadership rope. I was being groomed for greater leadership even as an airman basic. Very first assignment. Haven't even been sent to my first real base yet, just training. And about 2 weeks in, I was confronted by a senior guy. I mean, E5, E6. I was an E nobody. And he confronted me because my squad, the team that I led, that I marched, had just marched back from the fire ground, which is about a 2.5 mile march from the fire ground back to the barracks. And as we got back to the barracks, the team that was at the barracks was about to go on their 1 mile walk. And they're like, hey, you guys need to turn around and get ready for PT. And I'm like, our guys are exempt from PT because of what we do on the fire ground. Our training is PT. Our training is physical. Our walk back from the fire ground qualifies for everything that you're doing. And he said, don't ever dress me down in front of the public. Don't ever argue with me in front of the public. Just because you get that rope on your shoulder doesn't mean anything. You may think you're a leader because you got that rope on your shoulder. I'm like, I didn't ask for the rope. Somebody put it on me. They told me what I was supposed to do. I do what I'm supposed to do. That's it. He's like, good, then you need to follow orders because that's what makes a good leader. And those two things did not register in my head. I was 21 years old. I had no idea. In fact, I don't think I was 21 yet at that point, but I had no idea exactly what leadership was supposed to be. I mean, I'd played football and seen some, team captains, and I'd seen coaches who kind of pounded it into you, do what I tell you to do, or else. I had a stepfather who was a military leader, apparently, high-ranking enlisted guy for 30-some years. He had the same kind of pounded into you kind of mentality, and this guy was demonstrating the same thing again. I'm like, look, I don't think leadership is just given to somebody. I think you either have the traits or you don't have the traits. And he's like, well, leadership isn't born in anybody. I've got to teach you leadership. And I'm like, okay, but I don't like your style. And in that moment, our confrontation led to me taking off my rope and handing it to him. And I'm like, if what you do is leadership, I don't want any part of it. I don't want to be you when I grow up. That's not my style. It's not me. It's not going to be me. I don't want to be conformed into the image of you. I don't like you. And that was the end of my leadership at that base. Now, I can tell you, there's a strange phenomenon. I was having this conversation with somebody just the other day. There are those who have a natural leadership capacity. John Maxwell talks about it all the time. John Maxwell, when asked the question, are leaders born or are they made? His reply is kind of sarcastic, smart aleck, but absolutely true. He said, I've never met a leader who wasn't born yet. So yes, leaders are born, but the skill set necessary to be a leader, that's a grueling schlog. And the challenge is that tension between the two of throwing a rope on somebody's shoulder or throwing a name badge on them or just calling them a leader. That's not what makes them a leader. The title is not what makes you a leader. Now, having the leadership capacity, the communication skills, the ability to influence people, the kind of personality that people stop for a moment and listen to what you have to say, that natural skill set, that natural talent, that goes a long, long way. Now, I know some leaders that they don't have the charisma. They don't have the outgoing extroversion personality type. They don't have a vast vocabulary. They haven't studied politics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they have this powerful, quiet, empathetic consciousness that when they're in the room, people are always kind of mentally checking in with them, even if they've said nothing. And a facial expression alone will cause people to ask questions. A change in mood will cause people to ask questions. A departure from the room will cause people to ask questions. My wife and I are the two ends of that same pole. On the one end, I've always had a natural gift for gab. I've always studied leadership since I was in my 20s, since I took my rope off. I've started studying what is real leadership. And the first leadership book that I read around 21, 22 years old was How to Become a Person of Influence by John Maxwell. And I haven't stopped. I haven't stopped in over 35 years studying leadership, psychology of leadership, and all that kind of stuff. And I still love to talk, as you can tell, because I'm in front of the camera right now. My wife, on the other hand, her number one strength is also learner. So she never stops reading. She never stops studying. She's already got a bachelor's degree in psychology. She's working on chaplaincy and a master's degree, and she just never stops learning. We're always going to seminars and training programs together and observing people. But the number of words she says is about 10,000 a year, where I might say 10,000 an hour. But when the two of us together walk into an event, it doesn't matter the event. It doesn't matter if I'm going to be on the platform or not going to be on the platform. It doesn't matter what level of involvement we have. If there are people there who know us, we've had on many occasions, people just come up to the two of us, they hug us both, and they're like, I'm so comforted to know that you two are here. There's some kind of validation in the fact that the two totally different leadership styles, personalities, and qualities view this event, this occasion, this opportunity as something worth participating in, investing in, being a part of. And whether you're the type who quietly sits in the corner and says nothing, but every facial expression, every eyebrow raise, every blink, people are analyzing, going, what does that mean? What are they thinking? What did they get out of that? What are they going to do with that? How should I mimic what they're going to do with that? Or you're the kind of person that people walk up, they're like, okay, so I know you had a thought about so-and-so. I get that on a regular basis, right? That's a natural leadership ability. However, there are a lot of people who have that natural leadership ability, meaning the qualities of good leadership are in them naturally, and they're still horrible leaders. Why? Because talent will get you to the top, but talent won't get you there. Natural ability will get you to the top, natural ability won't keep you there. What's going to keep you there is the discipline necessary to master the skills, to sharpen the skills, to hone the skills, to raise them to the next level. Go back and study John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Study the law of the lid. The law of the lid says whatever your current maximum capacity is, that's where your leadership stops. And if you were to push as hard as you can maybe move that needle by 2 or 3 points. So whatever these gifted, skill set, talented areas that you have in your life, if you're a 3, 4, or 5 at something and you push as hard as you can, you're going to be average. If you're a 4, 5, or a 6 and you push as hard as you can, you might become a 6, a 7, or maybe even 8. You'll be a little bit above average. But if you can find that place in your life where your skill set and your talents, you're already in that 8, 9, 10 arena, don't rest on your laurels there. Push as hard as you can, and you'll be a 10, 11, or a 12. And at that point, you become the Michael Jordan, the Tiger Woods, the Shaq O'Neal of that thing. You become the best in the world at that thing. If that's your endeavor, then understand what I mean by a grueling schlog. There was a series of shows that came out, gosh, it's probably been 10 or 12 years ago now. You could probably still find them on YouTube or Netflix, called Pros versus Joes. And there's this innate thing, especially in men, more so in men, also in women, I guess, but more so in men, that says, I look at what you're doing and I think, that ain't that hard. I could do that. And there's something in us that says, I'm so confident, so convinced that I can do that, I need to prove it. And so how do we go about proving that? Well, we take on the best in their category at the thing that they're best in their category at as average people. Now, I can tell you, I can run a lawnmower, I can run a weed eater. But when I watch these guys that you could walk down the sidewalk with a pencil and just line the edge of the grass against the curb, I can't do that. I am not that good. I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the passion for it. I don't care. And part of that's probably because every time I've tried to do it, I suck at it. I end up with that little curve right up into the grass, cuts a big bald spot in the yard. That's me. I end up with trees that they don't look anything like a sculpture when I'm done with them. They're lucky if they don't look like alfalfa when I'm finished. That's not my thing. I don't care enough to get better at it. It's always going to be a 2 or a 3. And eventually I'll get to the place where I'll just quit doing it and I'll pay somebody else to do it better. For now, I just do it on my own because I don't care that much. I just want it to look kept, not immaculate. I'm okay with that. There are other areas in my life where I just don't stop studying. Now, I know we have all the camera equipment right here in the studio. We've got all the monitors and all the lights and all the microphones. We've got everything it takes to produce a live event. Everything it takes to produce a live event. And if you're willing to pay me enough, I will bring my equipment to your live event and I will do it. And I've done that on many occasions. I'm also going to be honest and tell you this. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably a 5 or a 6, maybe a 7 at that. And if I push really hard, if I invest in just the right equipment, if I study just the right courses, if I learn a little more about lighting, a little more about color correction, a little more about editing, I could probably be a 7, 8, or a 9 at that. But put a mic in my hand and put me on your stage and I'm a natural 9. And when I push hard, I can be a 10, 11, or a 12. I can change your event that way. Which for some people is intimidating. For some people just sounds arrogant. But see, that's the place where I've faced the grueling slog and I just didn't quit. I don't spend 10 hours a week in the gym. A lot of people I know do. I don't spend 20 hours a week running around the block or running miles around the park. I used to. I don't do that anymore. I spend my time studying communication, and training communication and leadership skills, because that's the area of my life where my deepest passion and my greatest results come from. If you're a Joe taking on a pro, you might be a 4, 5, or a 6 at a pickup basketball game. You might score 15, 20 points a game when you're playing with the kids in the street, so to speak. When you're playing with the other men from your gym or your club and you just walk in there and you dunk on everybody, just remember, Shaq is over 300 pounds and close to 7 feet tall. That's a big dude. I'm not so sure you're going to charge the basket while he's standing there and get a dunk over his head. I'm just saying. I don't think you're going to walk onto the golf course next to Tiger Woods or some of the new up-and-coming pros and say, hey, I'll take you on. Probably not going to happen. You might be good, but are you that good? See, here's what you got to remember. That grueling slog that moves you from the position of, I've got the rope, I've got the title, I've got the badge, into the authoritative leadership. When you walk in the room, people go, see what he has to say. But what's she thinking about this? I want her opinion before I go anywhere else. I mean, watch the women on Shark Tank. I listened to Chris Voss the other day. And in a podcast interview, Chris Voss was talking about his encounter with all the sharks and actually sharing the stage with Mr. Wonderful. And in this dialogue, he's talking about the two women and how dramatically different they are in their negotiation skills. And about one of them, he says, she has this very disarming smile, an uncanny wit, and the ability to make you realize you're an idiot without telling you you're an idiot. That's some masterful communication right there. And you don't get that by accident. You don't get that by hanging out with the average Joes. You get that by constant research and constantly practicing. So listen to Chase Hughes this morning. He was talking about some negotiation strategies of how you frame a question before you ask the question, because the question behind the question isn't as powerful as the statement before the question. Rewind that and listen for a minute, because you're going to hear the title of 3 or 4 books in there. And when he said that, he said, just understand, you can practice this in front of the mirror. You can scotch tape these principles, these ideas, these 15 lessons all over your bathroom mirror. You can have them as reminders on your phone. But until you engage in conversation, try this skill set and see it fail, you will not sharpen your skill. What's he saying? The same thing Mike Tyson said. Everybody's going to plan till they get punched in the nose. Right? Napoleon said, everybody has a battle plan, and it lasts about 15 minutes into the engagement with the enemy. Everybody thinks they can take on the pros, the professional negotiators, basketball players, tennis pros, football pros, golf pros, whatever it is. You think you can take them on until you do. Many years ago, I took a little anti-terrorism training when I was in Honduras. I was watching these guys turn cars around at 50, 60 miles an hour with a backward, what you call a candy cane or a J-turn on dry asphalt, lifted 4x4s on dry asphalt. Just the right speed, just the right braking, just the right timing in the turn. Masterful. I took some of that training. Fast forward 20 years, I'm at the Texas Motor Speedway. There's a driving club there, and they've hired us as part-time workers. And my wife says, well, tell them about the driving you've done. The professional driver as a firefighter, trained on all these vehicles and trucks and all this kind of stuff. And I said, well, I have driven a lot, and I've been paid as a professional driver to do that kind of stuff, but I don't think it's to the skill level. So I mentioned it, and they kind of laughed like, that's cute. Then they took us out on the inner course, the race course inside the speedway, in a 15-passenger van. And when I watched them handle that easy to tip over van full of people on a chicane at 50 miles an hour, I thought, yeah, I can drive a car. I've only had a couple of accidents in my entire life, but I don't drive like that. And then we had the privilege of getting in the Z06 with the truly professional driver. Ironically, he was 23. I was not. And he took off down that racetrack. And he reached 110 before we got to the chicane. He downshifted 3 gears, hit the brakes really hard, about threw me out of my seat. If it hadn't been for the 5-point harness, I would have hit my face on the dash just from his braking. Downshifted, caught that gear, and came out of that chicane on an inside pass of the car that we had been tailing the entire time at 100 plus. Went through this entire lap 3 or 4 times. Every time I watched the precision, probably 3 inches away from that Corvette in front of him, which had my wife in it. And every time he passed it, I thought he knew exactly when to pass, exactly where to pass. And I'm sure some of this is choreographed, but on my best day, I don't trust myself that much. On my best day, sharpest, couple of Red Bulls in me, a good night of sleep, all stretched out, I wouldn't get in a car and pass somebody with 2 inches to spare at 100 plus miles an hour. That's either precision skill or insane. You decide. But see, that's not your average Joe driver. That's not your road rage participant. That's not mom on her way to school in the morning or dad on his way home. This is a different level. And the challenge that we have in leadership is that there are many people who are thoroughly convinced it can't be that hard. Give me that title. Give me that paycheck. Give me that opportunity, and I will show you that I can do it. And very quickly you realize you are way out of your league because you haven't done the homework. Yeah, you got the charisma. Awesome. You got the willingness to talk in front of a crowd. Great. But you got nothing to tell. See, it's those hard schlog, those grueling moments that, as the boxers say, 4 o'clock in the morning run when nobody's looking. That's when you win a fight. That's when you win in leadership as well. Stepping into that arena, it's not the critics in the stand whose voice matters. It's not the people who are looking from the outside going, well, you should have done this or you should have done that. We call them armchair quarterbacks, right? Or Monday morning coaches. Everybody's got something to say about what happened, but really the only one who has a voice in what happened in that negotiation, in that conflict, in that hostile takeover, in that merger and acquisition. The only one who has something to say in that is the one in the ring getting punched in the nose. And whether you came out the victor or you came out on the losing side of that particular confrontation, you still know more. You've still accomplished more. You've still done more in the way of leadership getting in the arena of the fight than someone sitting on the outside critiquing how you got in the arena or how you fought. See, that's the challenge with leadership today. And I'm going to tell you, when I talk about story power and I talk about the 7 C's, which is part of our 6 weeks Done With You course, the 7 C's are about being able to look back to that moment in the arena and go, I didn't just read the book. I didn't just hear somebody talk about it. I showed up on the battleground. I got kicked in the gut. I got punched in the head. I got my teeth knocked out. I got my head rattled. I know what it means to be in that fight and survive. And sometimes the greatest win is not the victory lap. It's survival. It's the ability to come back and do it again and again and again. And the greatest stories come from that conflict. Sometimes, not the conflict you won, but the conflict you learned from. The greatest stories come from the lessons that you've learned. To be a mentor, to be a leader, to be someone that others look to and go, that one's got authority. You got to be there. You can't claim undefeated if you've never showed up for the fight. It doesn't work like that. Undefeated looks like I've been here many, many times and I lived through it. You don't get undefeated for never fighting. You get undefeated when you fight and you never lose. But there are a whole lot of people that have got that 50-50, that 500 batting average, that are still considered some of the best in the world. I mean, what is a great batting average? Most people can get into the pros with a 320, 340. I mean, you're top of the game at that. A 500, that's pretty impressive. Nobody bats 1,000. Nobody hits 100% of every ball thrown at them. But if you're not in the batting cage, swinging at that ball, 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 you're going to be 100, not a 300. You're never going to get close to a 500. Why? Because you got to get in the arena and get punched in the nose a couple of times. That's how you learn leadership. I study it. I practice it. I get punched in the nose from time to time. I get told that I'm wrong. I have to start over. Reskill, regroup, retool, come at it again. I think it happens to the best. And some people are playing at a higher level. I'll get there. I'll get there eventually. But right now what I want to know is that the foundation I'm building in is pressed down, shaken together, and running over with strength. Not some made up Chinese road where the asphalt, the concrete, the cement of the road looks like it was peanut butter spread with a pocket knife. I don't know if you've driven in the Congo or these roads that they build in various places all over the country so they can steal the natural resources, but I've driven on those roads. I could break them with a toy hammer. All the traffic just turns them to rubble within about a year most of the time. Some of them don't last that long. And it's because much of the government's been sold out to people with pretend deep pockets. They just get manipulated. Is that going to happen to your business because you don't have the chops to be a good leader? Because you haven't been in the arena, you haven't had your nose punched in a couple of times? You think you got it figured out, you've read all the books. I've read a lot of books. But you haven't actually been there, been put in your place, been knocked off your pedestal, been told why this isn't going to work. You had to go back to the drawing board and start again. When you've done that a few times, now not only do you have stories to tell about leadership, but you have experience that other people look at you as a mentor and go, I want to learn that lesson without having to live through that lesson. That's exactly what great leadership communication is all about. The ability to demonstrate to somebody, I've been there, I've been in the arena, I've been punched in the nose. Here's how you can avoid that punch. Here's how you can sidestep that kick. Avoid the blow altogether. There are rodeo riders that ride bulls that know the name of the bull when they step into the arena. They know what that bull is capable of. They know what he's going to do. They know how he acts. They know how he treats people. And some of those riders look at it and go, I'm not ready for that bull yet. Match me with somebody else. And there are some that look at that bull and go, give me the biggest, give me the baddest, because I want to prove that I can win. I know it's going to hurt. I know I'm risking my life. I know it's dangerous. But I want to prove that I can at the highest level. You will not catch this guy on the back of a live bull. Unless it's, like on Stockyard Row in Fort Worth where you can actually sit on it and get a picture. Yeah, otherwise, no, I don't do live bulls. That's not my thing. I'm not capable, I'm not competent, and I would probably hurt myself if I didn't hurt the bull. In your leadership, are there places where you would honestly say, it's not my shtick? I mean, I could do it, but I can do it like a 4 or a 5. I could do it, but I could do it at like a 1 or a 2. I could do that at an 8, 9, or a 10. I need to polish those skills. Well, how do you polish those skills? You get in the arena with them. You test them. You put them to work. It doesn't come off the note cards. It comes off of doing it face to face and seeing if it actually has the impact you want it to. That's going to take time. That's going to take practice. That's going to be your morning run, your hours in the gym, your time in front of the camera. That's what's going to prove you got the chops to do what it is you claim you can do. Pros versus Joes, not just anybody can do this. I don't say it arrogantly, but we just sat down and mapped out, because we got a lot of travel coming up in July. We just mapped out 15 episodes of Leading Leaders Podcast that I will write, pre-record, edit, and secure to be scheduled to go out. I don't do that often. I don't do that. In fact, this is the first time ever that I've done more than 2 at a time. The level of discipline necessary to do that is pretty intense. The amount of time and commitment that it takes to do that is pretty intense. But see, what I normally do, maybe 2 in 10 podcasters can. I have no script. There's no teleprompter. I can walk from camera to camera and start talking again, because what's coming to you is coming from my heart, my head, my life, my experience, my research, my study, and my getting punched in the nose. And most of the time on Leading Leaders Podcast, that's what you're getting. Maybe there's a quote or two that I've looked up and I have stuck on a sticky note underneath my table here. Maybe I read from somebody else's book and then share my thoughts and ideas on it, but it's only going to be a paragraph or 2. But this is an unscripted show. It's from my heart and my head. Turn on the cameras, turn on the lights, turn on the mic, start talking. That's Leading Leaders Podcast. For over 1,800 episodes, that has been Leading Leaders Podcast. It's a test for me to follow this pattern. It's a test for me to write out a series of 15 episodes that are going to be consistently threaded with each other. I can tell you, it's going to be fun because it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be hard for me to do. It's not my norm. But I think it's also going to be a powerful benefit for those of you who are watching right now, and those of you who are watching while I'm speaking at different conferences around the country between now and the end of July. If you see me at one of those conferences and you think, hey, what is Leading Leaders Podcast? You're going to realize this was pre-recorded before that live event so that I could speak live at that event. There's something to that you should probably learn from. And I challenge you to ask yourself, what arenas have I stepped into, proverbially got punched in the nose, to know that the skill set that I claim to have has been tested and it's real. And if the list is short, find some more arenas. Find a place to test what you believe you're the best in the world at and up-level that skill. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with Story Power. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at StoryPower.